Hello everybody, thanks for checking out this video here on G4G. Today's topic is going to be one video in a two-part series that I'm going to be doing over the next week or so here on G4G. And this idea came about from a stream that I was doing during the week. And I kind of got the idea to do two different videos, one of which is going to be the most impactful heroes in Marvel Avengers Alliance history. But for this video, I'm going to go ahead and do the most impactful gear in the history of Marvel Avengers Alliance. And I don't know how long this video is going to run because we got a lot of ground to cover. And I'm not really going to be able to do it full screen since I'm going to be bouncing around a lot on the hero gear. And unfortunately, since they have not fixed the type search in full screen, we'll have to do it in normal. So right here in my agent's hand, I have one of two honorable mentions that I want to talk about. The list is going to be in no particular order. It's not really a power ranking. It's just going to be gear that's existed and has made a rather large impact on the game. Now most of it will be PvP related gear because anything can have an impact when it's in PvE and you're using consumables and everything like that. But this does count for both PvP and PvE. The honorable mention is in my agent's hand, and that is the Devourer. I give this an honorable mention because it was never really used excessively, but it can be used quite powerfully in PvP. This weapon likes to follow up and counter people who are bleeding. So once you get one stack of bleeds on the enemy team, it's all over because one stack or one person makes the Devourer sometimes follow up when hitting bleeding people and sometimes counter bleeding people, and then of course it spreads its own bleeds. It works out really well with the Black Knight because then every hit from the Devourer will create two stacks of bleeds. And it is also a magic weapon, which means if you are running the Crooked Branch or the Resonant ISO, this will heal every time it fires off. That brings me to honorable mention number 2, which I actually just mentioned ironically enough, and that is the Crooked Branch. This is an item that nobody really ever uses and very few people actually have. I think it is quite a powerful device because of the fact that it will heal on any magic item. Now this also goes for quick actions and free actions. Unlike the Resonant ISO, which is only a normal action, the Crooked Branch don't give no shits about that. If it's magic, it heals. So if you were running the Mystic ISO on somebody and you turned everything they did into magic, the Crooked Branch would heal them. And also pops people for using energy attacks on the enemy side of the field. So that is my two honorable mentions, and I'm now going to go ahead and jump into the meat of the video. So right here on the first page we see one of the most impactful weapons in recent history, and that is the Deb, the Dark Energy Blade. This thing came out of nowhere as a PvP reward, and everybody looked at it and was like, oh wow, you know, this damage is so bad and it's just garbage and who's really gonna want this thing? Yet it has turned the face of PvP on its edge. The fact that we are dealing with a PvP that has not been melee friendly since the Hugins Eye, the Deb comes in and says, you know what? Your ranged items, they're now subject to possibly getting popped, and your debuff actions are going to maybe get popped. It was one of the only things that really did a good job against the Worthy for a little while, until recently it was fixed that the Deb would not interrupt cursed actions like Fear Me and Love Me. When it did, it was really strong, and it put Kurth on notice that she might not be the all-powerful being that she is today. Unfortunately, that has changed because the counter is a psychic attack and Kurth has always been immune to psychic attacks, so now Kurth simply dodges it. However, the weapon is still very good against gun attacks, debuffs like the Blackest Void, and Pesty, Null trying to do his You're Not Worthy. There's a lot of things that the dev shuts down, and it really creates a very tight environment in PvP. Because of the fact that melee's not very much liked, and now the dev erases other parts. So this is definitely one of the more impactful items in recent history. The fob, it's coming close. I'm going to put it on the list because it starts the agent phase, and it has great synergy with the lunacy, and then it can phase the agent later on. It also is a drain item, so drain items are pretty good, if other than the fact that they are slowing down the game currently. The fob leads us into its partner in crime, the lunacy. The lunacy enjoyed a huge run in conjunction with Emma Frost and the covert ISO. Basically, the thing is still in a really nice spot right now, in that it exposes just about everything the enemy team can do. It exposes it, puts it out in the light, and all of the counters that you build up on your team suddenly work against more things. 2 pops into the lunacy, and you no longer have stealth. That's not that easy to do in the game currently. We have Heimdall basically, and that's just about it. Spider-Man Noir, he likes to chew up stealthy related items, but there's not a whole lot that actually detects stealth and then allows you to counter it. And that's where the lunacy, or the lunacy and the fob, come in really, really well. Now, the Lantern of Doom is another item that is definitely up there in the power structure. The Lantern of Doom has taken over being the modern Mystic. It is basically the Mystic on steroids because it has so many things that you can do with it. I honestly believe the Lantern of Doom has not left my side in a long time. Be it PvP or PvE, I really do enjoy having the Lantern of Doom around. It provides you a Mystic Shroud type effect in the first round, and then it has a huge amount of functionality afterwards. It has a great synergy with Snappy Service and other things that provide Unholy, or what the Oni Breaker gives, and then the Lantern of Doom can become a quick action with those. Unholy and Sacred basically make it so that you don't need Snappy Service in order to get incredible benefit out of the Lantern of Doom. That brings me to the next item, the Weather Control Device. This was one that kind of snuck up on people when it first came out, and turned out to be absolutely huge. It sets up for so many team synergies. First, we have the Warm Zephyr, which is up every other round, and it is a quick action. It removes debuffs, and it provides you with a sizable heal. Combined with the Cube, which we will see later, that definitely gives a lot of sustain for the team. We also have the Hailstorm, which applies Chilled, Bleeding, and Winded, so it shuts down scrappers, and it applies bleeds to the enemy team, and it's catastrophic. And of course, the number one action is the Fire Tornado. Not so much for the burning and the dizzy, but the exhausted. And AoE exhausted is absolutely great. It has continued to work and shut down so many heroes like Pesty and Red Hulk and Null and enemy agents. It's just an absolutely phenomenal gadget. Definitely one of the better ones in somewhat recent history, although the Weather Control Device is now beginning to age slightly. Branching off of the Lantern of Doom, we'll talk about the original, the grandfather, and that is the Mystic. The Mystic absolutely turned the PvP world on its head when it first came out. Not so much for the obsolete tech and the Bane, although obsolete tech is certainly very good on agents, but because of the shroud that it provided in the beginning of combat. The shroud basically said that you cannot get debuffed until the shroud is removed or round 1 is over. Of course, not a lot of things at the time gave us that, but there was Nightcrawler with his Mystic Shroud ISO, which was very, very annoying for a while in PvP. Later on, we had the Lantern of Doom, and of course, we have Age of Ultron Thor with his I Am Also Mighty, which only applies to Age of Ultron people or the agent if you have the Legionnaire rifle. Often paired with the Mystic was the Synthetic Cube, so powerful that you could actually carry 2 cubes, which was the Synthetic and the Prototype. Honestly, I have not seen anybody pull that off in a long time, but it definitely was quite popular way back when to run the Synthetic Cube and the Prototype Cube. The Cube speaks for itself, the reality hacking that everybody loves to hate, responsible for more dodges than you could possibly imagine, the great ability to do a Blackest Void in round 1, which of course would remove Mystic Shrouds and protections and cause disoriented. We had the Light Fantastic, which turned the next huge incoming hit into a massive heal. We had the Improbability Field, which could really debuff a team. And then we had the Atom Smasher, which collects all those debuffs and exploits the hell out of them. The Cube and the Mystic have been the most sought after PvP related items probably of all time. Everybody wanted these, and if you had them, you were probably quite the victim of jealous agents around you. These are things that go on sale quite frequently because they're so desirable. Moving on from the Mystic and the Cube, we are going to bring in one of the most defensive items of all time, the Neurotrope, and we will talk about its cousin, the evil goateed cousin, the Neuropurge. The Neurotrope has been around for a long time. It is one of the best setups for buff-related teams. It basically does what Heimdall does, but without a guarantee. The original father of the Neurotrope was Beast. Not Pasty, but Beast. It gives your entire team combat awareness and epiphany, and it also gives you random positive effects like strength and fortified, etc. These were never guaranteed, but the Neurotrope was very strong, and it made going in on your team quite a risky thing to do until the Neurotrope's buffs were removed. Probably the most common item that is used to buff your team for rising up in Fightest Hour exploiting. Its evil dastardly cousin, the Neuropurge, is a little bit different. Whereas the Neurotrope does everything nice, the Neuropurge does everything not nice. It is a psychic attack, and everybody knows what it was like back in the day to watch Magneto and Juggernaut just go with their little helmets and laugh at you. But it applied off balance. This was an absolutely huge thing back in the day when we had to worry about Heroic Age Iron Fist popping everything you do. Off balance from the Neuropurge summarily shut him down and got him out of your hair for a little while. It also put out Migraine, and it also put out Pressure Points. It has a small chance for Despair and remove buffs. The biggest thing about the Neuropurge really was the off balance. For a time, the remove buffs was much, much higher, but unfortunately it got nerfed and taken down. Now we come to the Psychic Amplifier. I only have the prototype, but the Psychic Amplifier existed in PvP for quite a long time. It had the power to remove debuffs at 100%, and it raised all your stats as if you were buffed by Emma Frost. It also was one of the few items at the time to restore stamina before stamina became such a big deal. The psychic amplifier was so strong for a little while in that it eventually got nerfed, and some of its positive benefits only became a chance to get them. So, let's talk about the two biggest, or the three biggest scrolls in the game's history. The new little bastard that everybody loves to hate, and again, everybody wishes that they got the 2 times this has been available. The Black Scroll for some people, the Scroll of Rudamaroth, otherwise known as the Ruda. So the Scroll of Rudamaroth is basically the thinking man's version of making a pesty team without bringing pesty. The Scroll of Rudamaroth is one of the most obnoxious things in the game when it comes to PvP. It has the great benefit of being a quick action opportunist. In case you weren't aware, opportunist 100% of the time applies staggered. Staggered means you can't dodge. That means you don't need to worry about accuracy, unless somebody has their own little passive like Amazing Spider Tits. The staggered simply shuts down all natural dodging. It also comes pre-equipped with manipulated. That means everybody hit by the infamous Black Scroll now has a pesty style effect that they cannot clear their debuffs. If you really like your debuffs and you want your team to get them sealed in, the Rudamaroth is the way to go. The original annoyance, the Scroll of Angelob, or the Scroll of Unglebob, as some people say it, or the Baloney Scroll, otherwise known as the SOA. The SOA removes harmful effects from your team and removes buffs from the enemy team. One of the biggest counters to the Mystic ever. It is a quick action like almost all of the scrolls are, and it has a 3-round cooldown. It is also magical, so some people like to try to pair this up with Null to get meteor stacks going, but it doesn't always work. The Scroll of Angelob was one of the great equalizers along with the Blackest Void for some time. It is still used, but is mostly shows up in lower ranks of PvP. That brings us to one of the most awkward scrolls in the game, the Soak, the Scroll of ACAC, or the Scroll of Unglezak. The Soak is a multi-function item that has quite a lot of nifty stuff to it, and it may see quite a resurgence in PvP today because of one of the later functionalities to it. It has 4 seals. Woe be to the person who makes it to the 4th seal, but on the number 1 seal, and this is why people typically use it, not only do you remove buffs from the enemy team, but you also seal in future buffs for the entire playing field. So if you really like your rising up buffs and you are trying to do finest hour things like Heimdall, Sandman, Wonderman, Omega Sentinel, all those guys, the Soak is your dream scroll. It seals them in and you cannot get them removed. However, that is true of the enemy team. So things like the SOA and Nano Plague and Blackest Void no longer have a big effect. But it does remove your enemy's buffs first. So you do wind up with an advantage until they're reapplied. Then you have all enemies get Broken Will, but then the entire playing field gets Ethereal Strike and Ignore Defense. So now you're looking good against phase people. The 3rd seal is where this may come back into play. All enemies get Despair, but you don't. However, the entire playing field becomes immune to Bleeding, Burning, and Chilled. And then finally, you die. After using the 4th seal, the enemy team gets Soulfire, which no longer really means anything because buffs can't get removed. But every member of your team takes 2 extra turns immediately. So your agent kills himself and everybody on your team immediately gets 2 turns. So all of the scrolls in the game basically provide a wide variety of effects, and they each do some things that you really need them to do. The Scroll of ACAC certainly may see quite a comeback with Despair. So, moving on to there, let's go to another oldie that worked out really well with the Mystic, and that is the Savant Spear. Lucky for you newer folks, the Savant Spear may actually drop in incursions for you. This was quite the obnoxious little stat stick back in the day of PvP. It started your entire team with a sizable shield, and you generalize somebody if they got hit with it. Whereas the Deb is a little bit risky to run on a defensive team since your agent may spam it and not do good things, the Savant Spear can't be fucked with if you use it on defense. If you wind up swinging away with it, no big deal because you're generalizing. However, it is not a melee weapon. Believe it or not, it is considered range, so you can pop somebody with this and not get drained. The Savant Spear cannot be reforged, which we're never really too sure why, but it does at least have newer versions that drop, so my pathetic little 75, I don't have to worry about reforging it. If I liked it, I can just farm for it. Moving on from there, we go to the Cosmic Cardinal. The Cosmic Cardinal has always been very strong for PvP and PvE. It was one of the most original special functionality items, and what it would do is it would join in on follow-up attacks, or when your allies perform single target attacks, and it gives you cosmic energy. Really strong now because it restores stamina, and it increases defense. However, cosmic energy can be removed, but this is definitely in a lot of agents' hands when they run follow-up and counter teams, like those pesky little Rocket and Spider-Man Noir teams. Moving on from there, we come to the Signpost. One of the most long-lived PvP items from when it came about to today. It's a quick action. Your entire team has the benefit of taking less damage from dots. You are poisoned, but at least your poison is reduced because of the Dark Fortitude. It is up every single round. It is magic. It's not going to get stopped by the Deb, and what it does is when it is used, it takes health and stamina from the entire enemy team and gives it back to the agent. The Signpost routinely gets bugged out where it doesn't do what it's supposed to do, but the Signpost is a mainstay in so many PvP team-ups simply to keep the agent healthy or just whittle the enemy down little by little. Moving on to some more modern gear, we talk about the Grace Note. The Grace Note loves to exploit opportunity, so it works out very well with the Scroll of Runemeroth. It exploits stun, so it likes incapacitation. It exploits webbing, and it also has a preemptive attack. This is one of the grand initiators for the Spider-Man Noir Rocket type teams. If you go to use that weather control device and win them and stop those follow-ups, the Grace Note may get in your face before you do it, and you may be facing a barrage of enemy attacks simply because of the Grace Note. It's also a good setup for some other gear in that set. Moving on, everybody's favorite, the Rapier, will cause drains because it is a melee item, but you cannot screw with the power of the Relentless Rapier. It likes to follow up a lot, and it is highly used with other pieces of the Spider set. Again, mostly on Spider-Man Noir, Rocket, Union Jack type teams, but it also works out well for just about any team. People use it with Enchantress because she pops so many people. People use it with Null to get his tag team rolling. Hugely popular item, very strong. Cannot be denied the impact that the Rapier has. On to more huge impact, the game changer of the Hugins Eye. Not to be confused with its slightly lesser brother, the Moonin's Eye, which is obnoxious. The Hugins Eye was a PvP reward and turned the melee meta completely on its ass. This originally said melee attacks just won't hit you. And when people started comboing it with things like the T-bow glove, not only would you dodge a melee attack, you're going to punish them and drain them for it. It did get nerfed, so now that you have a very high chance to evade them, but you may get hit. Some things did disrespect the Hugins Eye, like Iron Fist's combo breaker, but most things that were melee would just simply whiff unless you applied staggered. And this is what brought staggered to the forefront as a major debuff item. Going to an oldie but goodie now, we come up to the Hot Shot, the original flaming shotgun of doom. The Hot Shot was often used with other pieces of the demon set, the signpost, all those goodies. If you had poison on you, which was the signpost, you had a huge bonus to defense and a very high chance to stun enemies. I used to run this with the signpost or the thorny back in the day with Captain Steve Rogers and Pesty, and it was not unheard of for me to get triple stuns in the first round. This item never really took a nerf, but it was a hugely powerful item because of the AoE and the stuns. Works out really well with the signpost. Moving on, we come to the Raft Shank. Oh boy. This and Heroic Age Iron Fist would just get in your face and pop you all the time for any follow-ups. A weak weapon to be used manually, it does have the benefit of being stealthy, and it does pincushion, which is rather unique in the game except for people like Fandral, and now a few other people have things like pincushion, but it's not called pincushion. The Raft Shank is highly obnoxious and can also be used to initiate follow-and counter-up teams, because if anybody goes to do a follow-up on your team, the Raft Shank gets in their face. Unfortunately, I do not have the next item. It is one of the items that I really want to get in the game and can get from the new incursions, and that is the can opener. The can opener was a PvP reward right before the arcade Spec Ops. This had it had a counter to it, and it also had the ability to cause mechanical stress that would basically lock out any of your moves that you just did for an extra long cooldown. So if you used something that was a 1-round cooldown and the can opener popped you for it, it was now a 2-round cooldown. Quite an obnoxious item. Now we move on to Emma on a Stick, the custom only for killing. This has made a bit of a comeback recently because of the Emma meta, but the Emma meta is now slightly going away. It does do her psychic tap, and it also does migraine. Because it's psychic energy, it can go around a lot of avoidance and should not proc counters. Because it is gun and ranged, it may get popped by the Deb, but I believe the Deb will let this go because of the fact that it's psychic energy. The custom only for killing is farmable, and it's a good way to bring an Emma style debuff to the team if you're not running Emma. Speaking of guns, let's talk about the Black Roscoe. Definitely a mainstay on the Spider-Man Noir rocket teams. It's a special functionality item that says, hey, you're trying to do counters. No, I'm going to hit you for it. It doesn't interrupt them, but it does pop you, and with highly offensive teams, it can cause a lot of damage. And it also initiates for the rocket Spino type teams. Also, back in the custom gear, we have the custom magnetic field generator, and there is now a new free action version of this that drops during daily missions. The CMFG, or the MFG as it was always called, is very great with snappy service, and it is like bringing Magneto's shield to the team. When the shield is popped, you get an extra turn, so it really makes it dangerous to go all in and start popping shields on your team. However, it is subject to buff removal. Sticking with the oldies and goodies, we come to the Coulson's Revenge. absolutely a total monster back in the day for PvP. Unlike the custom possessed pistol, which didn't see that much PvP usage, the Coulson's Revenge did. It has a nice long cooldown of 3 rounds, so you use it once and it goes on cooldown for a while. And it gives you Avengers Assemble. Even if you don't have Avengers, it can make your team join in on each other's attacks, similar to Psylocke and Ares. Very, very powerful gun, hits like a truck, beautiful passive on this thing. Moving on, we have a recent entry that was pretty big back in the day and has made a comeback thanks to the Emma meta that has slightly come and gone, and it was the Experiment. This is available in the store. This is now actually still a very strong item because of the fact that when you use it, your team drains stamina from the enemy, similar to what Angrier has. But even if you don't use it, your agent will drain stamina if hit. It was used to counter Emma slightly, but its biggest thing that this counters is the lunacy. This absolutely wipes Falb and lunacy debuffs off the table when they get on you. It is the only thing that can do that. Things that cleanse will get rid of the straining, but the Experiment is the only thing that can get rid of those red bordered debuffs, like the Maddened and the Craze. Moving on, not too much used on defense, but can certainly have a lot of power on offense, are the Prisms. We now have a free action version, but the Emerald Prism, which is the original, was never considered that strong until Snappy Service came around. The Prism is very, very strong for repeat offensive people like Molly, or Quicksilver, or Spitfire, but it's not to be overlooked for constantly tanking defensive people like Colossus, Red Hulk. As defenders are getting more and more buffs from these AISOs that have been dropping, it is certainly worth it to bring a Prism out of the dust and use it on your defender like a Colossus or Red Hulk or a Rescue. Anybody who protects and maybe provides covered is going to be a nightmare to take down if you Prism them. Moving on, we come to the ID card. So this was a covert ops item, and it's not that strong now. It is special functionality, but basically what it does is it says if you get hit, you will recover health and stamina after being hit. Way back in the day, however, this would heal you for every hit that came in. So if your agent was a protector, the agent would live excessively for taking repeat attacks. This can be combined with the Resident ISO and the Mystic ISO to become a magic item that will also heal you for being magic when it is used. The card's popularity has faded because of the nerf that it took, and it was pretty necessary for this thing to get that nerf. The Goblin Glider is one of the original hard hitters. Now, it does have a distant cousin that I don't have, the other Goblin Glider that does the AoE and the Enfeebling Serum, which is deadly with the pesty teams. But the Goblin Glider was stealthy, deadly crits, and it exploits flying. Good way to get rid of those flyers, and just an absolutely massively strong hit that wasn't to be underrated because it was stealthy. It's going to pierce through and get to the people you want it to get to. Going for another oldie that still has quite a lot of benefit today. We're going to come to the Dragon's Foot, also known as the Steps of Shulao. Absolutely phenomenal for melee teams. Your Quick Jugs back in the day used this successfully, and now your Spitfire teams, your Quicksilver teams still use a lot of Dragon's Foot. Basically, it provides you with a passive that says all unarmed attacks of allies gain guaranteed hit and a higher chance of critting. When you use it, it has a chance for a follow-up, and it does combo setup. Very, very strong passive weapon in the right hand. You don't want to use it too much, but it's a great buff stick. It's a great stat stick. Also, similar to it, its somewhat related cousin, the reboot. The reboot, not too good for itself, but it provides immunity to bleeding, burning, and chilled, so it turns your agent into a mini Colossus. It is a quick action, so if you slot this on defense, it's not bad. Your agent will get to use something else, and because of the 2-round cooldown, it won't be spammed. Not too dangerous to run this. The Skeptic and the Hexenjäger have become immensely popular because of magic warding that it provides. It was the thing that basically pushed Null off the table. When the meteor stacks were made a magic item and Gamora was so popular with Doom, magic warding came around from the Skeptic and also the Hexenjäger when it went on sale, and said, you know what, I don't have to worry about that anymore. However, due to the recent nerf to magic warding, the Skeptic may start losing its place in PvP. To counter the Emma meta, the techno-organic endoskeleton became quite popular for a while. Again, much like the others like the reboot, it has a chance for a follow-up, and it also does combo setup, but its biggest thing is that it made you immune to psychic and bio attacks. And it also made you immune to bleeding and poison. Very, very good for stopping your agent from getting a lot of debuffs, and it allowed you to go in on Emma and not have to worry about her psychic tap. Of course, an item like this has tons of PvE and ramifications too. The Staff of Asclepios. This is a farmable item that basically is like bringing the original Angel to the battle. Not only does it heal the team over time, but it also gives them blessing that says healing is increased. Very, very good in today's meta that does a lot of healing and a lot of drain healing and everything, but clearly it is shut down by Despair. Nanoplague does not do a really good job against Asclepios. You need the Despair for it. Hugely powerful item, been around for a long time. Similar to the Staff of Asclepios, but slightly different, is the Shepherd's Staff. It was a quick action item that heals your entire team, but again, like Angel, it gives lead the charge. The agent misses the next turn, but the entire enemy team takes 2 turns. Very dangerous in the hands of certain teams. Accelerating people like Null and Kurth is absolutely deadly. It also gives you the Signpost thing of reduced dot damage, except this one is called Crown of Glory. Nearing the end of our video over here, we're going to go ahead and talk about the 4 Horsemen set. God, it's going to be tough to find these. So we're talking about the entire set in this case. And that was the Ex-Obliv, the Memento Mori, and the Gauntlet Caress. And of course, the big hitter, the No Mercy. The No Mercy was such a huge hit at the time that after a few seasons had gone by, Playdom said, you know what, we need to nerf this. We're sorry. The No Mercy was hitting like a truck because it exploits debuffs. And it exploits all the things that the rest of the set puts out. Here we go. The Gauntlet Caress, a special functionality item. Anytime the agent gets hit, he may countered with the Gauntlet Caress, which at least will do Withered. When you have 2 pieces, you drain energy, which reduces stats. 3 pieces, you do disadvantage. And 4 pieces, you get Absorb class. So if a Tactician gets popped by a Bruiser, the Tactician now starts gaining Enrage. This made it very dangerous to start going in on your agent once you get to the disadvantage level. The Ex-Obliv is a stealthy item, not a subtle item, a stealthy item that hoses down the enemy team with Opportunist. Really good because it's staggered, but once you start buffing it, you add pressure points chaos shots, and then finally nano plague at 4 pieces. Let me tell you, nano plague along with chaos shot is incredible. The Memento Mori was not one of the most liked pieces of the set, but it was stealthy and did do doom at 2 of them, despair at 3, and fatal blow at 4. Honestly, this whole entire set can make a huge comeback thanks to all of the drain and healing meta that's been going on. I could see a lot of people bringing the entirety of the 4 Horsemen set out because it just does such lovely things. Such a lovely day. No Mercy starts off a pain, but then it starts exploiting everything the rest of the set does. It has a guaranteed crit at 4 pieces, but honestly 2 and 3 is where the meat of this one is. It exploits attrition, and it is a Paragon exploiter. Unfortunately, the No Mercy did take a nerf. Mine would need a massive reforge. I am missing the Hand of Apocalypse, which was everywhere in PvP, but now nobody's really running it anymore. A huge, dastardly hitting mace that did tons of stuff. Not only did it exploit protection and shields, but it was a boon buster. Not a lot of things boon bust in the game other than that demon looking sword and X-Force Deadpool, but yeah. The Hand of Apocalypse, I really hope they sell it again. I would love to get my hands on a modern version of it, and I'm just so sad this is never shown back up because everybody would love it. There's a lot of people who had no chance to get it, and if you're like me who just simply couldn't finish it at the time, it would be quite welcome to get another chance at one of those. And I'm going to finish this up with an item that no longer has the power that it used to, but it was used quite effectively with pesty teams for a long time. The GG prototype. So the GG prototype went off of cosmic energy. It said for however many cosmic energies you had, it fires a shot of toxic mixture. One of the few things that the agent could do for a long time that would cause internal bleeding, which is particularly deadly because it can't be cleansed. Unfortunately, when the whole quick action thing came around, the GG prototype lost most of its teeth. Still, it can be comboed nicely with a few things, especially if running the Runemeroth or Pesty, because you can put out a ton of debuffs and then still do something else in the turn, but because it is a gun attack, it is subject to the deb. So, that is pretty much the video, guys. Let me know if I missed any major glaring items along the way. And any that you're like, dude, how could you not have talked about X or Y or Z? I'll throw a nod to the Ionic Devourer simply because of what was going on at the end of last PvP season. But it remains to be seen how long the Ionic Devourer is going to have life. If Playdom does go ahead and fix what was going on with grit and drains, we might not see the Ionic Devourer too much in PvP. There are some definite honorable mentions along the way, things that were used for a little while and just, you know, they kind of ran their course. You know, things like the Brute doing buff blocker and despair, things like the Adeline set and the debuff removal that it did, which was kind of like Rescue, where it would remove 1 debuff per turn. It remains to be seen how things will play out going forward, but I think I've pretty much touched upon, you know, most of the major power items that we've had along the way. I would like to give a nod to the twist. Where are you? Yeah, the thing that I don't have. The Twisted Gift was used rather extensively for a while, especially with Null to stack magic. It also had dot reduction. That was quite a popular item for a little while. I do have to throw a tiny bit of a nod that way. And I think that's about it. There was something that I saw. The Staff of Return is seeing a little bit of play to create an attempt at a resurrecting agent. The Mahayuga, that's one that I wanted to talk about that I forgot about. I am so surprised that the Mahayuga is just not used anymore. Not that it was ever used to exploit weakness, but the chance to preemptively counter, I could totally see a lot of Spider-Man War rocket type teams making good use of a Mahayuga, but nobody's really using it anymore, and I'm surprised. I know there's better items now. I mean, the Mahayuga would cause a drain if it was used, but still, I find it surprising that there isn't more Mahayugas getting used in PvP now. So guys, stay tuned to the channel for the next video in the series, which will be the most impactful heroes of all time, you know, from when the game started up to the modern era. Again, I do apologize. The video is long, but I think we covered a lot of good gear in this, and hopefully I may have introduced you to some gear that you didn't know about and maybe will actively try to get if you see it around. So, take care everybody. Hope you enjoyed the video.